Hey, accredited investor, I'm so pumped to tell you about this brick, beautiful property that we just got. It's 166 units, solid brick building, almost 100% occupied. There's 2 vacancies right now out of 166 units. The only reason we got this is because the sellers took out one of those crazy loans 2 years ago and their loan is expiring. Otherwise, they would have been able to keep this building for the long haul, but we're stepping in at the perfect time to swoop up and grab this building. It's presently rented 15% below market rate rents. I have the comps inside the actual property to prove that too. All you have to do to learn more is go to homeinvest.com and click on one of the invest buttons. Or you can look down in the description of this podcast, wherever you're seeing it, and you can see the link in the podcast description. Now, always consult with a tax advisor, a financial planner, or an attorney before making investment decisions. Having said all that, all you have to do to learn more is go to homeinvest.com or click on the link down in the description below. Thanks, and looking forward to partnering with you.
Hey, Nate, there are 3 big things that we are seeing right now in real estate that are pointing to the future. The first one being the amount of savings that U.S. citizens have in the bank. What does the data show us, and why is this important?
Yeah, so we got to watch history on this. And so I'm just going to kind of point at a few headline articles right now. So CNBC published something saying savings rates for Americans is falling right now. And they interviewed a bunch of top economists. And then if you look at the Fed data, those of you that, if you geek out in numbers like me, go check out the Fed Beige Book, and you'll be able to quickly see that the savings rates, it went up a lot during COVID because people were stuck at home, not spending money, which made sense. And then since then, the savings rates have been falling to the level that basically they were at during the last big crash. And history tends to repeat itself. And if you're following us on video format, then you'll be able to see some of these charts and graphs. If you're following us just in audio, we'll try to link some of these down in the show notes. But when you start to see people losing their savings accounts and not having a cushion anymore, the moment that they have some setback in life, such as maybe a job loss or something similar, or maybe they get laid off, then all of a sudden that's the folks that start to go into default. And that's where we see problems happening. So these are the telltale signs of the leading indicators. When savings are dwindling, it's not good for Americans.
The other thing that I'll just say about savings in general, when people don't have money in the bank, which at the end of COVID, everybody felt really positive. They were really excited to get back out into the world. And there was a lot of spending in the economy because people looked at their bank account and they saw a lot. Now, when people look at their bank account and they don't see a lot, fear is on the rise, competition is on the rise, negative sentiment is on the rise because people look and they see a worst case scenario. Well, unfortunately, that's kind of a downward spiral, right? People tend to get stuck in that rut. Well, when this happens, what does that do for real estate? It actually produces a lot of opportunities. People are not out looking, oh, I want to buy a new house. Instead, they're thinking about safety, right? They're thinking about their security. They're thinking about how they can tighten up. And going back to the famous Warren Buffett quote, when people are fearful, that's when you should be out being greedy. And that definitely plays in here. So what was the second thing that you saw, Nate? You kind of hinted at this. What happens when savings go down?
Yeah, when savings go down and people are more stretched financially, then they start defaulting on debt. And I won't get into all the numbers right now, but from the last 2 weeks, the data that I saw shows that credit card defaults are up. They're nearly double what they've been since the COVID era. Car loan defaults are up dramatically, and then foreclosures are on the rise right now. And I guess I'm not shocked to see this, but we talked about this on a previous episode of the podcast. The federal government just stepped in to bail out VA foreclosures. They literally said, no, we're not going to let the vets get foreclosed on. We're freezing all veteran foreclosures right now. So when you see the government coming in with the swift hand, you know that there's trouble brewing.
Absolutely, right? The government is usually a lagging indicator, but they were here pretty quick. The other one that you pointed to was credit card defaults in cars. So credit card defaults right now are up. I've seen more than double, was the article that I saw. And this is one of the leading indicators, right? People like first money and savings goes up, gets bigger, then it goes down, down, down. And people are like, oh, money will come in. I'll just put it on a credit card because most of us live in like immediate gratification. Well, what ends up happening then? They end up defaulting. Same thing is starting to happen with home loans. We're seeing that across the board. It's going to be interesting to see if the government steps in anymore. One of the other things that I saw, so interest rates came down just enough that refinances went up. People are like, even though they know their house payment is going up, the fact that they can refinance right now to pull out some cash. I actually heard a guy this weekend telling me that he was doing that just so that he could get his hands on about 40K in capital. He's like, what do I care if my house payment goes up by $500 a month? I need the 40K right now. And that to me, like you're shaking your head, Nate, like that actually, I was like, man, that is not a good place to be. Because
Yeah, risky, because people don't think about what happens if the income stream that you have today, job, passive incomes, whatever it is, if the economy gets tighter and things get a little worse, what happens if your income stream dips or disappears by grabbing that short-term 40K? I mean, unless the 40K is going towards an asset that's going to produce more than $500 per month, I don't like the move. Not a very good move.
well, his argument was he said, well, I'm gonna pay off two credit cards, and that's gonna give me like $1,000 a month back, and I'm going to then have some money back in savings. But unfortunately, where my head goes is right away, like you had that money in savings before and you couldn't control it and you spent it. You're going to pay off the credit cards, but then something's going to come up that you want to go buy. And before you know it, the cards are going to be maxed out. And now you just have another 500 in payment going out every month. I don't know. It plus he's losing it in fees and he's taking all the equity out of his house. I don't know. It doesn't seem like a bright move to me, but to each their own.
To each their own. That so when people leverage too much or take out bad debt like credit cards, or we even saw this, we're starting to see a repeat play out of people that took out bad loans on some of the commercial properties. And this actually leads to another section that I wanted to hit quick, Steve, is that right now, despite there being turmoil, this is the time when deals are arising. So the favorite quote that you had mentioned, Steve, from Warren, Mr. Buffett, he said, be fearful when other people are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful. And this is really important. A lot of people are going to use this economic uncertainty as a time to just sit on the sidelines, bury their head in the sand. But now is when the best deals of our buying lifetime, of our adult life, where we can want to get these really good assets, they're emerging right now. And I'm pulling up and referencing an article on a Houston syndicator that lost a $51 million portfolio to the bank. It ended up going to foreclosure because they took out one of those short-term loans that had a floating interest rate. So they had 3% rate just a couple of years ago. Today they're 6, almost 7%. It doubled their payment. Alongside came with higher insurance costs, higher taxes, and that particular syndicator ended up losing that property to the bank. So the bad news is for people that took out those crazy loans, they're feeling the pinch right now. The good news is for people like us who are buying right now, is we're able to get some incredible discounts because people took short-term decisions on some of the bad loans. So deals are out there.
So one of the questions that I get a lot, Nate, so if somebody has one of those like the floating rates, how are we able to come in? How does that work out for us? People ask me this all the time. So let's just set the record straight on this. They have a flexible rate loan that went up and now we found the deal. Why does that work out better for us? Because aren't we taking it at a higher interest rate just to get the deal done?
Yeah, great question. So we don't pay what you would pay on the street right now. Like most people, as of the time that we're doing this recording, they're paying somewhere between 7 and 8% for their loan. Our loan, we get tier one status with Fannie Mae. We are direct with Fannie Mae. It takes years to build that relationship, and you have to have a near perfect or perfect track record with them, which we have a perfect track record with them. We have tier one financing available. Our rates, while everyone else is paying 7.1 to 7.5, somewhere in there, we're paying 5.9. We're able to lock fixed long term, minimum 10 years on our fixed loan. So, where are we benefiting? Number one, we're locking a reasonable rate. I'm not going to say it's a home run, but it's pretty good. It's reasonable. Number two spot that we benefit is that we're coming in and we're buying them out of their spot where they're panicking. They're panicking, they're losing the property to the bank. We can usually negotiate some kind of discounted sale price. So that's what we did. Like we're just closing our $12 million deal right now. And the only reason that we got that one, the sellers would have never sold it, but they had a loan that expired this month. Their loan was expiring. They had pressure on them. They had to make a move. So we were able to come in and scoop it up. Does that make sense, or you want me to go deeper on that?
No, that absolutely makes sense. I think a lot of people are like, well, if their rate moved, why, like, even if you're getting a slightly better rate, why would you take it? The other thing is because we are restructuring the loan and we're bringing in fresh capital, we're not taking out, the loan isn't as big, so we can control the cash flow. And as long as it's cash flowing right now, because it's a fixed rate, we know that it will cash flow for the foreseeable future. This is the place where you get great deals for sure. So what should people be looking for in 2024 when they're looking at investments? Should they just be looking for distressed property? Should they be looking for syndicators that are only taking fixed loans? Let's walk through what they should be looking for in 2024, Nate.
Two things. Two things. Number one, if your operator, if your syndicator is able to get a seller finance deal that has good long-term fixed debt on it, I would look closely at that. Steve on this show here, my partner, Steve, is really good at that. If you find deals like that from guys like Steve, look closely at them. The second one is if they're taking out a new loan, did they buy that thing from someone that had expiring debt? Did they buy it from someone that had one of those floating rate mortgages? That's where the best deals will come in 2024. The folks that took out short-term loans that they couldn't handle the uptick in rates, they couldn't get refinanced, and they had to bail on the property. Look for those opportunities.
There you go. All right, guys, that is going to wrap up today. We are wishing you happy holidays. Depending when you hear this show, this is right around the holiday season. We are wishing you an amazing 2024. And until the next show, guys, be great stewards of what God has given you, and we will see you here on Purpose Driven Passive Profits.